In the eerie twilight of fate, a man finds himself gripped by inexplicable premonitions in a quiet parking lot. Armed and vigilant, he feels an ominous tension building, only to escape unscathed moments before tragedy strikes. Was it mere chance, or the hand of a guardian angel guiding his steps? Meanwhile, across the city, law enforcement officers observe a peculiar phenomenon. Clusters of distress calls, seemingly orchestrated by unseen forces. Streets once dormant awaken to chaos before returning to silence. Is this nothing more than a coincidence or the subtle machinations of a darker power? In the midnight realm where myth and reality collide, the boundary between coincidence and cosmic intervention grows ever thinner. We'll see you on the inside. I feel like what you did was make a reference to another song, and I don't listen to Billy Idol.
I don't either anymore, but I did back in the 80s.
Oh, I'm sure you did back in the 80s.
I once got a
Billy
speeding
Idol
ticket.
tattoo, tramp stamp. No, knew it until right now.
I once got a speeding ticket. It was also a ticket for too much noise because I was listening to Eyes Without a Face too long and I didn't hear the sirens.
I once got out of not a speeding ticket, but I was driving in the, what's the lane? The carpool lane. I got pulled over and he said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I said, "Got no idea." And he said, "It's because this is the carpool lane." I said, "Yeah." I said, "And you're alone in the car." I said, "Well, you're not going to get a kick out of this, but I'm sure some people will at some point." But I said, "You're never alone when you have Jesus in your heart." And he walked away. Just walked away.
You got lucky.
I was like, got to try that again, but I'm never in carpool lanes because I don't live in a town that has carpool lanes now.
That's weird.
Yeah,
you don't live in a town without carpool lanes. Remember how important they were?
In Vegas, they were very handy.
And there was always somebody driving well below the speed you should.
It was exclusively people driving well below. Anytime you got behind anyone in a carpool lane, you're like, you know what? I hate every minute of this. Thanks.
We just got a whole couple minutes of complaining there that probably won't even make it into the show.
We'll find out. Oh, I didn't see you there. Welcome back to Sleep with the Lights on Volume 14. We are diving into one of our favorite series, and we're introducing it into Sleep with the Lights on because I actually am working on a episode that is definitely not going to be out by the time this is out, but I'm doing Volume 3 of Police and the Paranormal, and I said, you know what? It's time for Sleep with the Lights on. Police and the Paranormal, and that's what we're doing for Volume 14. My name is Scott. I'm joined, as always, by this guy.
Hit me.
And there you have it. Now, can we get into the first story? Now, is it okay? I think it's okay. I think it's fine. This first
You're
story,
making me nervous. You're like, okay.
I'm a little twitchy.
Okay.
I had McDonald's for dinner, and that is, let me tell you, the worst thing you can do before filming because you're just farty and bloated, and nobody wants that.
Well, so
like Will Ferrell in Zoolander after a foamy latte, but it's fine. This first story is called Nope, it's not. It's called Parking Lot Premonitions, and it's by Lanny Edwards.
I know Lanny.
He doesn't. I need some water.
Sitting there trying to hold my coffin the whole time, and you wimp out. I need some water.
Christian, are you that close to death that you just sit around holding your coffin? Because that's pretty sad, honestly, but beside the point. Anyway, Lanny Edwards says, I had two experiences in my 29 years that involved my safety and were inexplicable, but both so intense. I remember them both like it was yesterday. One, I was off duty yet armed, which wasn't my norm, walking through a small strip mall, maybe 6 to 7 stores. I started daydreaming about actions I would take if one of the stores I walked past was being robbed. Not that unusual to pre-plan such things, but then the feelings got super intense, as if it was going to happen, to the point I unzipped my fanny pack, I'm dating myself, and gripped my firearm in case I needed to quick draw. I stayed in that position until I got to my car, and then waited about a minute looking at the stores just in case. I was in what we call code orange, bordering on red. I finally shook it off, got in my car and drove home and wondered why I worked myself up so much. The next day's headline was about a double homicide in the parking lot literally 1 to 2 minutes after I drove off. I called a buddy at the PD to get the location, and it was the next aisle from where I was parked, about 100 feet away, max. That one haunted me for a while, wondering if I could have saved either victim. In reality, I probably couldn't, as the suspect ambushed his ex-wife and mother-in-law during a child custody exchange. But had I been there, it would have definitely resulted in a firefight after the initial killings. Regardless, there was a guardian angel that day that got in my head and made sure I was ready. And I'm actually, before we discuss that story, I'm going to tell you guys, all 3 of these stories today are pretty brief, and that's because there's one that I feel like is going to garner a lot more discussion. And I was like, I don't want this to be a 90-minute episode of Sleep with the Lights On, so I'm going to get shorter stories because I know one of them is going to go off the rails. And with that being said, what do you think of that story?
Was this the one that went off the rails?
No.
I didn't think so. I think there's a possibility that he felt something in the air.
Yes, of course, Phil Collins magic.
Classic Phil Collins.
It's a great song, yeah.
Miami Vice is where I first heard it, I think.
Wow.
It was perfect on that episode. But anyway.
No, it's fine. Never mind.
Could just be a coincidence. And a lot of police officers or law enforcement are more on alert than the rest of us in general, because that's what they're trained to do. It's hard to turn that off.
Yeah, get your hand in that fanny pack, boy. Grip that pistol. You never know what's going down.
Right. So there's a lot of different things that it could have been. I like to think that you can feel something. Are we ever going to get to a place where we can actually identify something like that? Like, this is what I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling this way. This is what's in the air
tonight.
I don't know if we can actually get to that point, but sometimes you need to pay attention to your intuitions, whether they're telling you something that's going to save your life or...
Which is usually the case, yeah.
Yeah, or end up showing you something that might keep you from divorcing your wife. I'm rhyming tonight.
Wow.
I don't know. It's just those like premonition type things.
Have you ever had it's not so much a premonition, but like that feeling that kind of like you mentioned, intuition in a situation where you feel like I need to get out of here right now?
No,
Really?
I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I felt like that or that I can think of.
Are you just aloof? You just don't really open
I'm very
up to,
aloof.
You don't you're not like in tune with what's going on around you? Or do you feel like you are?
I'm a people watcher, but I'm very aloof.
I think I've only had like one instance where I knew almost instantaneously that I was like, I need to get out of here right now. And that was the night that I got held up at gunpoint.
Ooh.
Like literally the second I turned around, the dude asked me, I was walking out of a little Dottie's building or something like that. And I was walking my truck. 3 dudes were walking behind my truck, and one of them said, "Hey, you got a smoke?" And I said, "Yeah, hold on." I was like, and I just bought a new pack or something like that. So I had 2 left over in the old one, and I just won like $300 or some shit. So I was feeling generous. And I was like, yeah, there's a couple left in this one. Just take that. And as soon as I turned around, and as I was saying that sentence, I saw them and I was like, I need to get out of here right now. And it wasn't like, I couldn't even tell you what they look like right now, but I just knew the second I turned around, I was like, this is going badly. And of course, he went to pull out a gun and said, "Give me your fucking money." He dropped his gun on the truck. I shoved him into the other 2 guys and I just booked it. And I should have got in my truck and drove away, but I literally just ran down the fucking road.
And now those people are all in prison making fun of the friend that dropped their gun because they ended up getting caught and arrested for crimes later on in life. I just profiled some people.
Well, they were profilable, but it wasn't.
Which feels right in this episode.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. And no, the criminal justice system is also pretty fucked up, so they probably were out within a day.
Well, I mean,
I'm pretty sure they were teenagers too, so they might not have even been.
I mean, that's
arrested.
Just the way the world is in some instances. But
yeah,
I've been robbed, but I've never had something where I felt like I need to get out of this place.
Yeah, I've just had like weird feelings before, and like that one time I've told before, like going up the ramp when it was raining out, and I just knew that I was like, in my vision, in my head, I could see my truck just, spinning out of control. I was like, I hope that doesn't happen. Then 3 seconds later happened. But I can't think of anything else in my life that I'm sure there's been moments.
I had one moment where I was like, I have to get out of here. That would that story probably would fit better on an episode of Strange Highness. But
is it a relationship?
Yeah, there was a chemical imbalance that I chose that made me extra paranoid at that time.
Gotcha. There was a chemical imbalance that I chose, and her name was but I knew I had to get out of there when she smacked the shit out of my face. My glasses flew halfway across the room. I said, hey, am I fucking blind now? Before I realized that my glasses were gone. But yeah, beside the point,
Velma moment.
Yeah. I can't see anything without my glasses. Yeah. No shit. Nobody can. Velma. Okay. Anyway, that's fine.
I would have to go back, but I'm curious if every time she lost her glasses, if we went back and looked at it, if it's a camera angle from behind her. Because we all know that Velma
she got junk
is an object of attraction to a lot of people nowadays. And I'm wondering if that was set up by certain, how like kids' cartoons have adult things hidden in them.
Do we all know that?
Anybody that's out there having to watch a lot of Scooby-Doo, report back to us on if they do weird angles.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Daphne?
Daphne, the camera was always on her. But okay. Velma.
Before we get any weirder with the cartoon and the clearly explicit content I'm feeling.
Let's go back to cop stories.
Yeah, let's get back into that. That sounds fun.
I'm sorry I derailed us again.
Yeah, it only happens once every 3 minutes, so it's fine. Weird story all the same.
Yeah.
That feeling of knowing that something is about to go down. It's weird. It's weird that you can't shake it.
Well, it's also interesting because when you think about it, he's in law enforcement, so heightened awareness in general. And, if you talk to the military, sometimes they get that heightened awareness type of thing where they know something's up, but there's no discernible sign. There's no noise. There's nothing, no movement that makes them think that. They just feel something's up. And then later on, we find out something was up.
And also, the man had a fanny pack, which means that he's always prepared. And we can't deny that.
I went to a Dodger game years ago with a couple of cops that were involved with hockey with me. And they both had fanny packs and guns in those fanny packs, and they let them in.
Well, they were cops.
Yeah, exactly. But it was interesting watching security check and double check everything.
All right, moving on to this second story. I didn't really know what to call this one, so I called it Spiritual Warfare Confirmed. Christian, this is where Christian shakes his head no at the camera. And this is by Jim B. Cooper.
I feel like we're, just with that title, we're a different podcast.
What's really funny is he doesn't mention anything about that at all in the story, but it just triggered a conversation that we've had multiple times, maybe not even on the podcast. I'm not sure. I actually sent it to my mom afterwards. I was like, it's so weird that I was looking up these police stories and I found this. It kind of sounds like this one thing this one guy was saying a while ago. And then she sent some stories of her own where she was like, we've seen stuff like that in this city and in other things. I'm like, wow, pretty wild stuff. But anyway, this is by Jim B. Cooper. And he says, yes, there's been a lot of unexplained things that go on during my 16 years on midnights. Here's another phenomenon that I don't think has ever been fully explored or explained. Call grouping. Let's say, for instance, you work in a precinct that has a variety of terrain and different housing types from upper class to middle and lower class, single-family homes, duplexes, housing complexes, etc. The point is, it's very diverse. Every department I have ever worked for experiences the following and only a few notice it. It seems like calls come in waves and are grouped in areas. I might get 20 to 30 calls in a week for, say, Washington Street at various points in the area. Might not have had a single call there for months, but all of a sudden, it's a rash of calls on one street ranging from domestics to break-ins to civil disputes, etc. Then that street will go quiet, and somewhere across the city, another street will start up. Crime analysts find this very useful, but it hasn't been explored in the sense of, is this a result of a group consciousness or shared energy? You will rarely hear from an area, then all of a sudden the floodgates open up and seems like every call is in the same area and then it switches. This is not specific to any income level or socioeconomic status. It's random but grouped together. Much has been said about seasonal depression and suicide, as well as other grouping and statistics about how crime occurs, but it would be interesting to learn why out of the blue everyone in an area sporadically and immediately begin requiring law enforcement assistance and intervention, and then go silent to long periods of time, and the same types and frequencies of calls move to another area. So that doesn't sound like much, but
I can see where you're going to go and why you say this is spiritual warfare.
I would love nothing more
than it to be spiritual warfare.
No, I just think, like, because this guy, like I said, he's talking like group consciousness, all that stuff, right? Which are theories, yes. But I am always brought back to this crazy pastor guy that I think it was Jake actually sent me a link. I want to say his name was like John Ramirez or something.
But he was crazy, right?
The story was crazy. I'm not accusing him of being crazy. You said
he was a crazy pastor guy.
Well, most pastor guys, number one, are crazy. Crazy for Christ, you know what I mean? But this particular guy, his story was crazy and wild to the point where he said that his father worked for the devil. And he was in like this dark occult practice thing for a long time in his youth or whatever. And that he said the devil came to his door 3 times. Like actually came to his door and talked to his dad like 3 times.
This actually does sound like a pastor's story.
Yeah, it does, because it was. But I mean, I don't even know if he's a pastor so much, or if it's just like a "this is my story" type thing that he tells around churches and whatnot. But the thing that he mentioned, I'm not even going to go into the specifics of it. I can't remember all of it, but I remember this long ass video on YouTube of him like driving around his old neighborhood and stuff, and kind of pointing things out, like, this is where we did this, or we used to, there were sacrifices that went on in this room up here. Sacrifices, man. I'm not even fucking with you.
He's one of them.
Sure. Yeah. But that's also a thing that you may not believe in, but it is a thing. And it's 100% a thing. And if you don't believe it, that's fine. But if he doesn't believe it, that's par for the course. You know what I mean?
think it's a great way to increase the attendance of church.
I haven't even gotten to the
Was this the story that was going to trigger stuff?
Oh, for sure it was. Yeah.
Okay.
But see, the thing that got me was in that long spiel of an episode or video, whatever it was, he got to a point where he said that, the church is losing ground because the church doesn't really handle things properly. He said, when I was with this, let's just call them evil entities or the dark side, if you want to bring Star Wars into it or some shit. He was saying that it was run like a business and that it was strategic.
Do you remember a previous episode we did where there was a similar complaint?
I remember mentioning this previously, but not.
No, but it was a similar complaint about the church that this particular person belonged to. It was almost the same kind of argument. Father Gabriel Amorth said the same thing about the Vatican.
Yeah, that wasn't a recent episode. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
But he said that it was run like a business, and it was strategic to the point where you would have people cursing or putting whatever, I don't know witchcraft terms, I apologize in advance, but like just cursing specific areas at a time. And you'd have like witches or warlocks, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. They would be putting these random things out. And I can even tell you what my mom said when I sent her the story, and that it was like strategic, like we're slowly taking over cities, we're slowly taking over states, we're taking over government, we're taking over this, but it's one step at a time. And it's strategic and business-like. And if you think about big business, is it really that big of a stretch? They kind of do the same thing.
I can see how this could be looked at that way, especially from a religious aspect. And I'm not just talking about like Christianity.
Yeah, I'm not
talking
even saying
about any religious aspect or any religious viewpoint. I could see how this view becomes popular and becomes a thing. And if you believe in the devil, you believe in demons, you're going to see the signs, because the world's fucking crazy.
Sure.
There's plenty of signs, but the world has always been crazy. People especially when they get older, they'll tell you, well, back in my day, it was so much better. It wasn't better. It was just quieter.
Sure. Didn't have phones.
So I can see, and this story kind of paints a picture of a true phenomenon, how crime gets focused on an area and then it's done. Now, we can go through Economist and probably break it down a little bit more and put some science if economists actually count as scientists, which I don't think they do.
No, they're like mathematicians.
We can break down the numbers a little bit and have different reasons for some of this stuff happening. But it is kind of strange how crime and violence will focus on an area for a while and then move on. Could it be that all of a sudden, once it started focusing on the area, law enforcement focused on the area and started arresting people? And then all of a sudden it was somewhere else? Could it just be stepping stones? Could it be a demonic force slowly taking over certain areas?
I'm so glad you asked. Yes. But no, like the thing that got me the most, and like I said, I don't fully grasp any of this. Like anything that I say is just stuff that I heard. And then if I hear something that kind of correlates with that, I'm like, oh. But the weird thing is, it wasn't that the cops were focusing on that area. These are calls coming in from specific areas. So these are actual distress calls.
It's actually a phenomenon where this stuff happens at times in certain areas. And really focused on these areas. I mean, sure, there's crime going on all around it.
Constantly.
But, and then it's away from that area. And you would almost think, okay, maybe they moved on. Maybe they did. Criminals move on. Smart ones do.
But see, that's what I'm saying is that it's not just criminals. These are calls from people's homes. He was saying that it was everything under the sun. He said middle class, lower class, upper class, socioeconomic, different, all of this shit, man. Everything was covered. It was just the area. It was the people in that area. Were they wealthy, rich people? Were they poor folks? Were they whatever? It didn't matter what they were. It was focused on certain areas, and it kept going back and forth. And the fact that over 16 years that he can go to different departments and see the exact same thing playing out, I'm not saying that it's not group consciousness. I'm not saying, even though I think that's 100% horse shit.
How could you think that's horse shit? And
that demons are actually
because
real
that would
stuff?
be a similar vein to like spiritual warfare. People can, and the story mentioned, he mentioned energy, and it could simply be some form of energy hit this area for one reason or another. So-and-so's little brother got hit by a car on the corner of 52nd and 3rd.
Now, would you say that this energy was evil?
Well, let me finish my story and then I'll get to the evil part.
Go ahead.
So this kid gets hit on the corner. This friend's little brother gets hit. It's a tragedy, and it spreads amongst the community, and they're just in a different mood. The people that knew him, the people that are emotionally attached for whatever reason, just because it's tragedy.
Sure.
And that could change the outlook or the focus of everybody in that area. And just a little change could have a butterfly effect a week or two down the line, where everybody's feeling this little bit of darkness.
Damn it, Timmy got ran over. Now I need to stab my neighbor.
I mean,
that seems like more of a stretch than demons, man.
I'm not saying they're connected, but they are connected because of whatever focus or energy has taken over a group of people in this area.
Yes.
Now, theoretically, if the devil existed,
sure,
that would be a very smart way of moving in at a time when people are a little off kilter and not able to protect themselves like they normally could. And since most people, or a larger number of people, are moving away from religion, would leave them more susceptible if the devil existed.
Big if, sure.
So, it could go either way. I think we're going to bring in another instrument of the devil, according to a lot of people. AI is getting to a point where they could break this down really quickly all over the country and get us some really interesting numbers.
And then be possessed by a demon and be taken down.
According to a lot of people, it's already a demonic device or
I could see it.
Or a tool of the devil.
Sure.
So you may not get, if that's the way you feel, you're not going to trust those numbers, but we could probably break it down in the next 5 to 10 years and really understand why this happens on a level that could help law enforcement and everybody else in the cities. And
sure,
I'm not sure that we would ever do it because, as you mentioned, not only is the church a business now, but everything is.
I don't think the bad churches are a business, but what I'm saying is that evil can come in and take more ground because they're strategic about it. And the church is just like, I go to church on Sundays, it's fine. They don't pray against things happening in their city as much as people that are like cursing things or whatever. It's a strategy. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spread this across this town. And people that go to church are like, well, I went to church, right? It's football Sunday. What the fuck? Now I got to pray for people too? People don't even know. Like, it's just weird. Like, I sent that to my mom, just expecting her to be like, oh, that's crazy. But she actually told me, like, my mom, obviously she's in prayer groups and shit like that all across the world probably. But she said that she's seen something similar happen, that even in like Cal City and stuff like that, there's certain times where there's random like objects that are just left in certain areas, and like not just a few but like a bunch. Like the one that was mentioned to me was VCR tapes with all the tape ripped out.
That just sounds like some teenager.
Sounds like some teenager to you, sure. But when it happens multiple times and countless tapes and shit like that, she said that what was happening is that there's these, dark circles or whatever, these groups of the occult. I don't know what to even call them. I'm not saying they're Satanists or whatever. I don't know what the applicable term is. So
Harry Potter readers?
Yeah, Harry Potter readers are over there, and they would record curses on tape. They would rip it all out. They'd throw it across the land.
Okay, that makes sense.
Makes sense. Like, no one's going to put the tape in. It's
not going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that kind of stuff doesn't work. But
see, that's where you're wrong. Like, how can we go from any kind of like cultural thing, like skinwalkers? Even we were just talking about skinwalkers recently. How is what they talk about, the power of words and the power that we have in words? We have stuff like The Secret and all that shit out there, right? Where you just speak into existence. Oh, this is what I desire, and it's supposed to happen for you. So why can't that same thing be applied to an object and then throw that wherever you want it to take place or take hold?
Well, first off, the reason The Secret is a little misleading is because while you can speak things into existence, that's neither white magic or dark magic. That is just a way of focusing your brain. Now, The Secret is a money-making tool, so they're going to get
it's a little new agey,
surface-level stories that seem legit that you can't do proof one way or another, when basically all it is just a way of focusing your brain. So what you see and perceive, you can and will achieve, something like that,
Yeah.
That part doesn't really matter to this, but
I just find it fascinating that there is real and then there's cheap knockoffs of everything, right?
Right.
And so biblically speaking, you have life and death being in the power of the tongue, right? Which just tells you, watch your words. Be careful what you say. And look, I am the biggest hypocrite of this, them all. Like, on the entire planet, I'm probably the worst at ever adhering to this.
I think I spend a lot of time, like, Scott, you can't, like, not really like that, but like telling you sometimes just don't say that stuff. But I get what you're saying.
Yes, but you can have that, right? And that's a biblical thing. That's from his lips to your ears, whatever you want to look at it as.
That's a biblical saying, is what you're saying?
That's
like
a actual Bible
quote.
verse, yes.
Yeah.
And then you have stuff like The Secret that comes out. And it's like, oh, yeah, you can do this and you can make money from it. Like, it's a cheap knockoff of what the original text is.
Well, The Secret also, because it's not a Christian thing, can take from all the various religious traditions, and you can pick and choose when you do that.
Sounds a little
It's
evil,
really
though, right?
easy to pick one line out of the Bible because there's a lot of great lines and a lot of great advice. That is a good
Proverbs
one.
alone you could probably take.
The one you just said is probably one of the best ones that most of us can hear, because half of our problems we almost speak into existence by acknowledging them
and focusing on it and stuff like that. Yeah.
My problem with some of this is it's we always let people off the hook by giving them a demonic or satanic reason for why they're acting the way they're acting or the things they do. When I always say, this is a human condition that has been with us since we started putting a lot of humans together in a smaller area.
Sure.
This happens. The religion can help people, and it does. And I think that kind of thinking is encoded in our biology. So there's a reason it's encoded in there.
Sure.
It is important for humans to think spiritually and religiously. I may complain about the people that run religions a lot.
Yes, and you do.
But it's a part of us, or part of our brain that we need to believe in this. And it helps us. It makes our life fuller. Plenty of studies show that spiritual people that belong to like a church type organization, no matter what religion it is, live longer, are happier. So there's something there.
And have the blessing of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Or whoever's Lord and Savior their religion focuses on.
Okay.
You know, whatever.
Sure.
But it's important, so people shouldn't just abandon it. And the atheists should shut the fuck up about some of it. You know, because they get just as religious with their atheism.
I've noticed, yes.
When you break it down, it's the same words. It's the same, I am right no matter what.
Well, that's not what I say.
I mean, but when you follow religion, you kind of have to have faith that your views are right.
Sure.
That's part of it. And that's how you're going to live your life. Hopefully you haven't picked a faith that's a cult or
like Satanism
or a murderous
den of vipers.
That too. Or a murderous
murder of crows.
Stop it. Plus, I'm like, I just got the chills really bad.
Yeah, it's because you're
talking about religion.
It's because you're hearing the truth.
Yeah.
And it's not sitting right with your evil, condemned body.
My name's Christian. I'm not evil. It's funny. The Secret came up at work yesterday, and I was like ripping it to shreds.
Yeah.
And I've watched The Secret. I've read the book. Parts of it make sense.
Yeah, as is the case with most things.
But you can pick and choose lines. I mean, that's how people both support the Bible and put the Bible down, by picking and choosing just certain lines. I mean, that's just the way humans do it.
Yeah, it was a fascinating correlation to something that I've heard only a few times in my life. And like I said, when I first watched that video, and I want to say his name is John Ramirez or something, but I may be completely off on that. If you're in the Facebook group, I'll try to find it and post it.
I want you to post it because I want to watch it, because I want to come back, because this is an interesting topic on how this, like a darkness, can come over certain areas at time. And it doesn't just come over cities or parts of cities. We see it come over
everything,
regions of, of a whole country, and including whole countries. I mean, if you want to look at darkness overcoming and taking over a country, you can go to Nazi Germany or Stalin's Russia.
And then you see redemption if you go to Germany now, but not back then.
Right? It's just really simple. And that's why sometimes I complain about people with this, like the evil, satanic or devil stuff. I'm like, if anything like that exists, yes. But also we have a responsibility outside of that to handle ourselves in a way that won't let the darkness in, however you believe that darkness, or whatever you believe that darkness is.
Okay. I'm sure people are incredibly tired of us harping on this, so I'll close it out on one final thought. You said if that exists, right? Like if the devil, and I'm not even fully convinced myself, but
I'm not convinced myself at all.
If that exists, then it's pretty much 100%. That's it, right? Like it's got to be evil.
Okay. If the devil existed and that's what the devil was doing, they should have finished the job thousands of years ago.
You would think, but you're going against the Almighty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a dance, man.
The Almighty that's losing its grip on the world, so it should come really fast. The end should come really fast, and it should be fire and brimstone.
I think the end is pretty fucking close, to be honest with you.
I think people have been saying the end is pretty fucking close since the day after Jesus died.
Left. Like, he's going to be back next week, though, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be close. Yeah, he didn't say when, but it's got to be like a week or so, yeah.
And now we have, like, portions of various governments, including ours, pushing for the end.
Isn't
which should scare us more than anything.
It does. It does.
There are people, and these are good Christians, according to a lot of people.
No, don't even try that.
No, there are groups. I'm not saying, I'm not throwing a Christian thing.
Don't say politicians and then say they're good Christians, because these are horrible fucking people.
I agree. These
are
people that are supported by certain groups. And I'm not, and they're small groups.
You talking like the family and shit like that? Is that what's called?
Stuff like that. Yeah. And then not just with that group, but there's other groups out there trying to influence things that are okay with billions of people dying so that they can get to heaven. And I'm like, I'm not quite sure that's how it works.
That's definitely not how it works. And unfortunately, they'll find out the hard way.
Unfortunately, you always get those groups in any religion. Some of them make cults that aren't attached to any religions either, but it's just the way we humans act sometimes. It's sad.
It is quite depressing.
But if the devil's out there, he's never done a very good job.
Well, if the devil's out there, what's that one saying people say? The greatest trick devil ever pulled?
The devil went down to Georgia and couldn't even win the fiddle battle. Come on, man. Okay. He ain't that strong.
Who wrote the song, Christian?
Charlie Daniels.
Okay, so do you think if the devil wrote the song, he would have written it a little differently? Probably. We can't say. We only got one side of that story. I'm done. You guys have the information. You know where we sit on this. I knew going into this, that was a fucking 25-minute after read that people are going to be like, well, I'm never tuning into this show again. But this is what we do here, and it's fine. Damn it. And review the show. You can't do that here.
I just want to, I'm sure we'll get some comments because I know some of our listeners believe what you believe.
And I think more than half of our listeners are not religious at all.
No. And that's fine too.
And that's why
But a lot of religious people we're still a Judeo-Christian society. So religion affects me just like it affects a lot of other people that are not religious because we live in a society.
It affects us differently, Christian, because I got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
I don't think you do have that joy, joy, joy down in your heart. I'm pretty sure I'm the one.
No, it's pretty far down there, Christian. Okay, I don't emphasize it or show it, but it's down there. All right, I make people laugh and smile, and that's how I bring it about. I can be depressed all day long if I want, as long as someone laughs. It's fine. This next one, this final one, I'm sorry, this is the longest episode of all time. I'm not going to do too much of an after. We're just going to close out after this story because it's been kind of a doozy on its own. This next one is called Beautiful Paint Job, and it's by William Ferrell.
Interesting. Hockey fan.
It can't be that William Ferrell, right?
He has a picture of himself on the mask of Cam Talbot, the goalie of the LA Kings.
That's awesome. I have not seen that yet. Okay, so Will Ferrell writes, we were doing a foot search for a burglar in a 600-unit townhome complex. The townhomes all look the same. Same architecture, color, kind of a faded yellow, and trim. It was nighttime, but we had some light from street lights from windows, porch lights, security lights, and our flashlights. As we were walking along between a row of townhomes, I saw that one townhome had been painted much darker than all the rest. That caught my eye. But as I was searching the bushes near that unit, something else attracted my eye. The paint seemed to be changing very slightly. It was still a dark color, but it just seemed like something was off. I lit up the wall. Every square inch was covered in thumb-sized cockroaches.
Wow.
I jumped back and probably said something like, shit, because the deputies I was with came over to see what was going on. When they saw the wall, they all jumped back too. They weren't all over the row of townhomes. They were just on that one unit. The adjacent units were the usual pale yellow. There was a clean boundary between the roaches and the adjacent units, just like if the unit had been painted with roaches. That was weird. Never saw it again. I added this in there because it just confused me.
It makes me feel like the movie Men in Black is true.
Well, it could be.
Because remember, there was a cockroach guy in there.
I do remember a cockroach guy in there. Yeah. What do you think that... Why just that one? You know what I mean? Is there a dead body inside or something?
I think maybe that's basically... Evil. Maybe somebody's not... That's the only place in the area that's not getting fumigated. So they all coalesce in one area and that's where they live. I once... I worked at a... I've always been around hockey. So I worked at a hockey rink, and this was a roller hockey rink in Lancaster.
I remember that rink.
I don't know. I don't think you remember this one.
What was it?
You're thinking of Holiday.
I am.
Yeah, this was over on Yucca.
This wasn't the Gretzky? No, that was an ice rink, huh?
Yeah, no, Gretzky was a roller hockey also, but this is before the Gretzky rink. This is a place on Yucca Street that we used to play on, and I worked there for a while, and you'd turn off the lights, or you'd come in the morning, and there would be so many freaking cockroaches. It was like horrifying because it was like, as soon as the lights went off, thousands came out. So it was like maybe not as bad as what this officer was describing, but
like an entire house painted with roaches, dude.
Yeah.
No.
So I've seen stuff like that, and the worst thing that ever happened was because if you worked there, you just kept your hockey equipment there because you were there every day and playing most days. One time I was getting ready I was out skating in warm-ups in the game, and my glove felt weird. I pulled my glove off, and one was sitting on my thumb, and I was like,
no. Then you never wore gloves again.
I never left my hockey equipment there again.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was a great place to play, a lot of fun, but it was gross. So I get who knows what it could be.
Reminds me of like horror movies, you know what I mean? Like where it's like an omen, where the people are doing sinister deeds inside the house, maybe.
If you hear stories from people in like downtrodden areas, even in the United States, sometimes you hear stories about cockroaches at this level.
That's a lot of cockroaches.
I feel lucky to have lived a life where you
only had one on your thumb.
Yeah. And the other one was I saw a bunch of them, but it was gross. We would kill them with poison every week or so, but
you can't kill them, can you?
They'll come back, man. They got their own Jesus going on that brings them back to life every time. But their Jesus is Satan.
And he doesn't exist, apparently.
Cockroach Satan definitely exists.
Yeah, well, that's because they're all Satan in their own right. That's beside the point. Folks, this is the longest episode of all time. We're going to close it out right here. What was your favorite story from that?
Not the last one.
Definitely not the last one.
I actually like the second story. Not just because of the long conversation afterwards, but
it's just an interesting fact, man. You know?
I can see us coming back to a subject similar to that or right along those lines. I don't know if it would be religious oriented, but it would be paranormal. Because I feel like there's something there that we need to dig a little bit deeper on.
We could do an episode on group consciousness or that like hive mind type mentality, because that's something that all this kind of fits within. And I feel like it would be something that we could tangent the fuck out of that thing and we'd still be on brand. You know?
So stay tuned. We'll come back to something like this.
And let us know your thoughts, honestly. Try to be kind. Obviously, we have differing opinions. You probably have differing opinions as well. The whole point of this podcast, this show, everything we do is to bring folks together and not to diversify or, divide people further. The government, everything else, the media, they do that for us. We're just here to share scary stories and have a good time.
They do it to us. They don't do it for us.
They do it to us. Hey, look at that. We agreed on something. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, remember to find us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, wherever you're at. Join the Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. And check out the website, thefreakydeaky.com. Check out the new merch. Check out the cool stuff. Draw on Christian's face. It's all there. A lot of fun things you can do on the website. Send in a story if you have a paranormal experience of your own that you'd like to share with Sleep with the Lights On or on our mothership. What is that? The flagship, the Freaky Deaky podcast, which comes out every single Thursday, wherever you get your podcatchers. In the meantime, folks, remember to sleep with the lights on because you never know what is lurking in the shadows. Good night. I got him.
Be scared